Good morning. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, February 20th, 2025. I will now ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Wednesday, February 12th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 6.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the notice of proceeding associated with agenda item 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to our only discussion item for today. It's agenda item 7, docket 4220 EI 112, which is the request of Hope Village Tiny Housing Alternatives for a waiver of our individual metering waiver administrative rule for a newly constructed multi-dwelling unit residential building. So for those of you that follow along weekly, you may recall that last week we took up one step in the process because we are revising the administrative rule that relates to individual metering. We also have additional waiver requests that will come before us in the near future while we're still in the process of revising that rule. So I just want to make sure that people are aware that we do have that open rulemaking process happening. And I want to make sure personally that I'm being open and objective for all the evidence that's being gathered for that process, and also not prejudging any of the waiver requests that will come before us between now and when that rule is final and revised. So I don't have additional comments to share about this specific one today. I did feel strongly that the evidence in the record and in the memo put together by our staff clearly demonstrated that this project specifically meets the definition of transient multi-dwelling buildings, and therefore that the individual metering requirements of Wisconsin Administration Code Section PSC 113.0803 sub 1 do not apply. So that means that because I'm at that alternative one from the memo, on the transient exemption decision, it's not necessary for me to weigh in on any of the other decision points. Those are now moot, given my position of Alt 1. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for comments that they may have and keep the talk going. Commissioner Nieto?
Thanks, Chair Strand. I agree with you in reviewing this, that this project meets the transient multi-dwelling unit definition, and it's also not necessary to weigh in on the other points in the memo. And looking forward to hearing what Commissioner Hawkins has to say as well. With this particular case and some of the comments, there was an issue that I'd like to address either way regarding the discussion of the disconnection protections as provided in the memo and in the utilities comments to this case. I do appreciate the utility raising this discussion and furthering the discussion, which it clearly did in a spirit of transparent, clear communication, and that was helpful. These comments regarding the customer-utility relationship, where there is joint metering versus individual metering, started to come up in the individual meter rulemaking as well, in response to the economic impact statement. And like you said, Chair Strand, that rulemaking is currently open for substantive comments and in process. So I hope some of this discussion informs folks planning to comment on the customer-utility relationship in that docket as well. These are interconnected in a way, but like you said, these are individual cases with individual determinations. So first, I would just say a couple of quick comments. It was good that the utility clarified that it would never collect bills by disconnecting service to a person's home while they're having a medical emergency. And that was a helpful point to get out there right out front. However, the comments also stated that once a single meter serves a multi-unit building, the commercial service rules apply and the occupants are no longer utility customers. So I just put out there that we need to be really careful here. While it is correct that in these cases, the occupants are no longer the customer responsible for the payment of bills as defined in the code, it's not correct that the commercial service rules apply. There are specific rules that already exist throughout the statutes and the code to ensure residential customer protections in cases in which the occupant is not the customer responsible for the payment of bills. So that might be a case where the customer on the bills is a landlord who owns a commercial unit and has in the same building a couple of rental units. The residential service rules protecting residential customers still apply to those residential units. So the utility does have to track and know when and where it's providing service to residential dwelling units in order to meet these residential service requirements. Some of this discussion clearly gets very quickly into the weeds, and it's really where the rubber meets the road on the billing and collection side of things. So it can be a lot to discuss also back and forth in writing. And there are also a lot of utility-specific process and terminology, customer information system terminology that can get in the way too. So I would just ask that our consumer affairs team reach out to the utility and work through any areas that may need further discussion to ensure there's a common understanding of where the commercial service rules apply versus the residential service rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nieto. Those are helpful comments. I know that there was a little bit of discussion or back and forth in the record regarding whether it's the commercial service rules or the residential service rules and the proper application of that. So we appreciate your clarity on that. I'll just restate again from last week, my expectation for the next steps in the revision of the administrative rule that governs this issue is that we have really substantive, robust participation from as many stakeholders as possible. Again, we've seen a lot of these. We're going to continue to see them. We know that the process needs updating, but the way to improve the rule as best as that we can throughout this process is to ensure that those next steps include us hearing from the people who have a vested interest in this. And I think it's helpful to highlight some of these specific things and maybe disagreements between either the parties or, misinterpretations of certain aspects of rules and what applies when, to ensure that those things can hopefully be not only discussed but fleshed out in our revision process.
Exactly, and hopefully get past a few of the basic kind of unintentional speaking past each other so we can get right into the substance and gather all those comments from folks. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
Yeah, thank you both. I'm in the same place at alternative one, that the individual metering requirements of the admin code do not apply because it meets the definition of a transient multi-dwelling building. And appreciate the discussion from Commissioner Nieto. I think that bringing it back to the discussion in the rulemaking about the financial impact, I just want to clarify, you were talking about the parts that the utilities raised about the administrative burden of trying to implement some of these potential changes. Is that the piece that you were talking about?
It wasn't. So in response to the EIA in the rulemaking, we received a couple sets of comments that just at a very high level said, hey, this rulemaking changes fundamentally the customer-utility billing relationship. And then we will comment in further specificity on that going forward. And I think, the point I'm making here is saying that the joint metering customer utility billing relationship is already provided for in statute and code and has been well contemplated. So just keeping that in mind when developing those comments. I don't think it was tied to a specific administrative dollar impact, though.
Got it. And then the back and forth in the record for this, I thought was helpful, that it did seem clear that the utility does have an ability to track whether or not residential customers are in commercial property, so they are able to do that. They were raising concerns about the burden of doing that and whether or not it's the building owner's responsibility to alert the utility or the utility's responsibility to figure out if there are residential customers behind the meter. So I think that will be something that will be needing to be clarified, even though I think you're right to raise that the residential service rules do apply, but it then goes beyond that as if there's flexibility and how the utility is made aware of that, I think was one of the the bigger concerns that was raised. And so, again, I think that's something that's appropriate for the rulemaking, but it's in line with what you were saying, so.
Yep,
I'm
all
good.
helpful feedback for the next steps in the
Yep.
rulemaking process. Great, thank you. Okay, so I think, again, thank you for your comments on this, and I think we're probably ready for a motion.
In docket 4220 EI 112, I move we find that the individual metering requirements of WIS Admin Code, Chapter PSC 113, do not apply because Hope Village meets the definition of a transient multi-dwelling unit building.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It is now the commission's intent to go into closed session and reconvene the open meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, sub 2.
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, sub 1, 2, to discuss the litigation matter identified in agenda item 8. We will then reconvene the open meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, sub 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going into closed session. Thank you. Okay, we're back in. We provided direction to legal counsel on the item that we discussed, and that actually does conclude our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 27th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, February 27, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.